us at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
KBLA Talk 1580.
The thrill of victory. The thrill of victory. Thrill of victory. Yeah, man.
KBLA Talk 1580 wishes to congratulate Mayor-elect Karen Bass on her historic win as the first woman and only second African-American to serve as chief executive of the city of Los Angeles.
Congratulations, Mayor-elect Bass, and welcome back to unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and this is my very first interview, and I am proud that it's here.
We are proud to have you here. What do you want to say to the listeners of KBLA Talk 1580?
I want to say thank you from just, I'm just full of the love that I felt every place I went in the community, and I just want the listeners to know that I promise you I won't disappoint you. I will be accessible. I will never forget where I'm from, and understand that is my primary motivation.
Congratulations, Mayor-elect Karen Bass, holding all leaders accountable to you.
No matter who you voted for, no matter who you are or where you live, I will be a mayor for you.
We're KBLA Talk 1580. Talk 1580. Talk 1580. And we don't black down. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm so excited to welcome in on a beautiful Friday a Guggenheim Fellow, member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He's a prize-winning music historian, pianist, composer, and Professor Emeritus of Music at the University of Pennsylvania. And of course, that is his music playing his latest single, Do Not Pass Me By. Dr. Guthrie P. Ramsey Jr., welcome.
Thank you so much. I love hearing that music in the morning.
Yeah, it sounds good in the morning. That music and your latest book, Who Hears Here, on Black Music, Pasts and Present, which I'm holding up on YouTube right now, are the reasons that you're joining us this morning, and I'm so glad to hear from you.
I really appreciate it. I love the show, and I love the politics, I love the music, and I love L.A.
Yes, indeed. L.A. loves you back. So, Dr. Ramsey, I really kind of want to start super basic, because when I started reading your book, I realized I don't know anything. Like, I'm like, oh no, I'm really not a scholar. Okay. No, but I really think that as I started reading, I realized there's layers to this, and maybe a lot of folks don't really understand it. So when you talk about being, a music historian and a musicologist, what does that even mean? Like, you talk in the book about studying, not just studying music, but studying the history of music and the history of the way music is talked about or written about.
Indeed. A music historian, a musicologist, is someone who has basically dedicated their life to explaining the power of music, both musics of the past and musics of the present. And what we do primarily, or at least what I've dedicated my life to doing, is to get people to understand not only what music means at a particular time and place, but how music means to us. How do we connect to it? How do we form these very strong identifications with it? Why do we argue about it? Why do we care so much about what Kanye West thinks about something? This is all connected to the power of music.
And it's interesting that you say that. It's like explaining music past and present, not just, yes, obviously sonically, but also in terms of its significance in social movements, in how we see ourselves, in other areas of culture and arts.
Indeed, and it's not just that. It's even more to the point for me is how does music make us know who we are or make us believe who we are? How does our participation in it, either as a musician or a listener or as someone who would spend $175, to see Beyonce do her thing, why is that so important to who we believe we are in the world?
Yeah, well, that's $175. Dang. Okay. Music is expensive these days. But I mean, I love that you go all the way in your book. The Who Hears Here is a collection of essays that you've written over the years about different aspects of music history, actual critical reviews, writing about your own journey. But you go all the way back to the early, and that was one of the things I didn't realize is how early in history Black folks and others, but Black folks in particular, started writing about, analyzing, and explaining our own music.
Listen, in my studies, I have learned so much about the 19th century Black Americans who were so dedicated to the art of music that they wrote books about it. They started journals. They toured transcontinentally to share what it is that they did. And I have to say, when you get into that 19th century stuff, you learn all about why we have so many connections to music in the present. So I always believe that whatever we are experiencing in the present has an historical background that would help us understand our experience even better.
Congratulations on that new single. And I want to talk about this journey for you. You in the book, you quote the kind of trope that those who can't do teach, but you're doing, and you've been doing and teaching for many years. I want to talk about that and the music and music history on a dual track. It's KBLA Talk 1580. We are unapologetically progressive.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KO! And we don't black down.
Congratulations to this week's KBLA Talk 1580's Office of the Week, Community Legal Aid SoCal. Advocates for justice in Orange and Los Angeles counties. Congratulations, Community Legal Aid SoCal.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
Did you know Kohl's has early holiday deals on the top toys? It was a game changer for me. I found all my kids' favorites, like Marvel must-haves starting at $11.99, Squishmallows for $25 and under, a Fisher-Price Dreamhouse for $49.99, and found so much more. Plus, you can take an extra 20% off or save even more with the Kohl's card. More gifts, more savings, more reasons to get to Kohl's. Select styles. 20% offer ends November 19th. Toys. Coupons do not apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, talking with Dr. Guthrie P. Ramsey, musician, and he's also a pianist, a composer, and historian, and a Professor Emeritus at University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Ramsey, let's talk about your music a little bit since we're listening to it, and that's where you started. You didn't start in academia. You started gigging. You started the way many start their journey into music, as a music lover and then a music creator.
Indeed, I believe I became a serious musician at age 11. That's when I decided that this thing was for me. And going through high school, accumulated, different experiences in different ensembles back when public schools had strong music programs. So, I could not have afforded to do all of the things that I was doing otherwise, and they had been accessible to someone like me. And when I graduated high school, I just started being in bands. I didn't go straight to college, and for my family, that seemed like a reasonable choice. I was just so into it and had been into it for a long time. And, it was, music has always been at the bedrock, just an interest in making it and creating things that people, could be moved by.
And a range of music for you, too. I mean, from church music to secular music. I don't know how much of a range that is, but...
Yeah, well, you're playing this latest project that I put out, and it's called A Spiritual Vibe, and it's basically a collection of spirituals and hymns that I had been raised around, but I put them in different settings, different digital settings. It was definitely a pandemic project where, done a lot of it was done digitally. The two songs you've played happened to feature my daughter, Bridget Ramsey Russell, and music.
Such a beautiful voice she has. Ooh, yeah.
And she's singing a little background on the latest piece that I've done called "Who Hears," which is the title of the book, and she's a young mother now. So, boy, trying to get her in the studio is a little more. It's a little different now. I got to get her in there between naps of these two beautiful grandchildren that she gave me.
Wow. But you were kind of recruited, I mean, from, the life of a musician, being on the road and being a lover of music and also a student of it. You were recruited kind of to be a music historian.
Absolutely. There was this a great gentleman, the late musicologist Samuel Floyd, who saw something in me, and I was doing a little research project for him, and he told me, I've met a lot of musicians like you who are teaching, the typical gigging musician's life, an artist's, life, which I know you know so well, is that you want to make your art, but in order to support your art, you have to do other things like teach. You have to sometimes have a 9 to 5 to help you, maintain the stability to keep the art practice going. And he saw me just all over the place and said, I really think you could do, if you honed in on this music history thing and, became a professor, you'd be able to just get the focus you need to make a real contribution to the culture. And I trusted him, and the rest is history.
And that history includes, ending up being a PhD and teaching at some of the great universities here, but also I think making a mark on how we talk about music and what Black voices are saying, allowed to say, or seen as saying when we talk about our own music, right?
Indeed. One of the first things that I learned when I went into when I left the gigging world and went into what I call the land of academia in the book is that it didn't look like the communities that I was raised in. That in fact I was pretty what we call exceptional by design. Let's put it that way. Where you are, you're finding yourself, to be. Actually, I was the first Black person to get a PhD in music history from the University of Michigan, where I got my degree.
Which is stunning. I mean, we're not talking about the 1800s here.
I know. It's just it really is astonishing that we're still talking about first and all of that. But what I really became committed to is making sure that more Black voices and more voices from the margins, if you will, would be able to tell these stories, and that it would affect how the stories were being told in the academy. And so a lot of what this book is about is tracing these arguments through the years, where I'm making a case for the Black scholar in Black music studies.
Yeah, I think, most of us who just consumers of music and lovers of music aren't aware of that. But so much of the conversation, especially since 2020, has been about changing the narrative and telling our own stories, and until the lion has their historian. So talk to me about how that plays out in the world of music history.
Well, one of the things that happened with the truly unfortunate and devastating murder of George Floyd is that people began to see in real time, during a televised lynching, that inequities were definitely real and not an imagined thing in people's heads. And since then, there have been a floodgates of opened of diversity and inclusion arguments. But some of us have been making these arguments for a lot longer than that. In fact, what I learned in rereading some of my essays is that in many ways I was saying Black Lives Matter back in the late 80s when I started, writing some of these things and thinking about these issues. And not saying, I was there first, but I'm just saying that there are many, many people have been saying these things for a long time. And this is why I'm so happy that this collection is being published now, because we can see that this idea didn't just drop out of the trees, 2 years ago, but in fact, it's been a part of this long civil rights struggle that we've been going through for a couple of centuries.
When you talk about music in particular, I think it's easy to take for granted, the impact of Black people, the impact of Black everything, Black everything on music, especially in this country, but really around the world, and not think about how that story isn't being told, or how it's being told, not necessarily in a way that's meant to damage, but with the absence of us in the writing or telling.
Absolutely. So how are you going to make truthful statements and logical arguments when you have a segment of any of the population not at the table making these arguments and helping to shape the narrative? And that's been, not my sole focus, but just certainly one of my focuses as I've, built this career.
And you never gave up. Obviously we're playing like the latest, but you've been, steadily putting out music, even gigging here and there, and a lot of gigging, while still in the academy.
Oh, indeed. As a mother, you know how expensive soccer cleats can be.
Yeah.
And keeping everybody's teeth straight and all of that good stuff, that you don't get to talk about so much with art making and doing the things that we do. So it's been a perfect way for me to keep my hands in the making of the music and also to try to shape the narratives and make a living as a professor.
I thought you would get expelled from the academy if you keep gigging.
Well, indeed, we're laughing about it, but when I first started back in the dinosaur age, you couldn't really let your musicology professors know that you were still gigging, Of course, I kept my little church jobs on the side, but if you were still playing music and not in the library where you, quote-unquote, should have been, there was this narrative that could surround you that you weren't quite serious about the scholarship, that you hadn't really, it takes a lot of emotional momentum to believe that you're an artist, to believe that you're a musician. And being a scholar at that time didn't really go together in the ways that it did now. And I hope that my career has helped other people have an easier go of it if you wanted to do both.
Yeah, I mean, there's something real black about that, too. It's like, yeah, I'm going to keep playing my piano. What do you mean I can't have a PhD? What you talking about?
Oh, you know it. We did, you're talking about the invisible church. I had invisible church jobs.
But on a more serious side, I mean, I would imagine that over the years, musicians who didn't have a doctor in front of their name, I'm not talking about the Dr. Dre kind of doctor, could easily, if they're trying to write about or critique the music, could easily be dismissed by the intellectual community.
That's a very fascinating point. And what I learned is that there are music studies that actually do privilege the voices of musicians, right? But it always had to go through that extra mediation step of having the scholar adjudicate, vet, or approve of what the musician was saying, or at least to translate it so that it could be legible to an academic audience, right? So that has even changed some with the hiring, particularly, again, after George Floyd's demise. More and more kind of jobs are opening up for people who have led their lives as musicians in the academy. So things are changing, not fast enough, but there's some movement, let's say.
I love those kind of points because it reminds us that even though there aren't still, thousands and millions of boots in the street worldwide, we are still feeling, seeing, and actually experiencing the impact of our protest, our boycott, and our movement. We're talking with Dr. Guthrie P. Ramsey, continuing the conversation after news, sports, and traffic on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Russia is taking Brittany Griner to a penal colony in the Mordovia region. Reuters now reporting the African-American basketball star was moved to an undisclosed prison location. Griner was sentenced to 9 years in a penal colony on drug charges back in August. That came after she was arrested at an airport in Moscow with vape cartridges in her luggage. Now this, Georgia Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock said Republican challenger Herschel Walker has crossed a line after Walker accused Warnock of being a negligent father. Warnock expressed offense during an interview with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Warnock said he wanted to set the record straight. My children live with me. During a campaign stop in Augusta earlier this week, Walker said Warnock doesn't keep his own kids. Both candidates are African American. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Left lane blocked in North Hills by a crash on the 405 southbound for Nordhoff Street. The southbound drive is stop and go from Devonshire Street. Vehicle stalled in Mission Hills, 118 westbound at Woodley Avenue, blocking the middle lane, so watch for sudden braking there. And also got a vehicle stalled in Mid-City on the 10 westbound for Normandy Avenue. Second lane for the left taken away there. Again, watch for sudden braking. Watch for a crash in Commerce just reported 5 northbound for Atlantic Boulevard. Looks like that's got the left lane block, adding to a slow drive into downtown this morning.
NetSpend All Access Account. Get the account designed for your everyday mobile banking needs. Banking services provided by an account established by Pathward NA. Member FDIC. Deposit account opening is subject to registration and ID verification. Terms and costs apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers got 23 points from Reggie Jackson and 25 minutes from Kawhi Leonard to hold off Detroit 96-91. Leonard returned to the lineup for the first time since October 23rd. The Lakers are at home tonight against the Pistons. LeBron James is questionable with a strained abductor muscle. December 14th could be a monumental day for the UCLA athletic program. That's the day the UC Board of Regents will hold a special meeting to decide whether or not to block UCLA from moving to the Big Ten Conference. UCLA and USC announced in June their intentions to join the Big Ten in 2024. USC is a private school, so the Regents can't do anything about them. USC is out the door. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
Did you know addiction to drugs like meth or cocaine is a disease and not a choice? But getting help is. If you have stimulant use disorder, you, your family, and friends may have a lot of questions, including where to start. Choose Change California can help. Make a change today and find a proven treatment option for you at choosechangeca.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
I find it important to be here as a business owner and entrepreneur because I want some more capital and I'm not really a fan of loans. So it's really interesting to see how people have gained wealth and what different spaces to advance my money in, whether it be stocks, digital.
And why do you think it's important for a company like Chase to promote building generational wealth in Black and brown communities?
I mean, it's important to me as one of the biggest banks in the world to promote Black wealth because most banks don't really, in my opinion, care about the money that I'm spending as they would opposed to a white counterpart that might have the same dollar amount in their accounts.
Well, you can bet on Chase offering insights on financial health, the path to home ownership, and entrepreneurship. It's the Chase Advancing Black Wealth Tour.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader. Follow 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 the leader.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
It's only right that I show you myself. And the dance gonna tell you about the rain. You know the feet gonna kick up all the dirt. And the dirt gonna tell you about the pain. And the sound only permeates the world. Cause we rode on so many of its waves. From a land where they can barely handle one. Of the 12 bars and the blues from which I came. To re-black in the stories of my blood. And the war for my kind of have a say. On the plane where most in the rooms told our stories through the white gaze. So who here's the art of the East? Who translate the sound on the page? To break through with the truth they avoided for so long is to bring the world a new day. Why the songs of the time in your heart, on your mind? Who is? I can take you to heights, change your life, show you right. Who is? Move with the moments of time. Give organized sound and phase. Know why the groove had arrived. Know why we dance in this place. This ain't inferior to none. A fat truce and try to escape. I come from the spiritual song. And all that jazz made us away. They say we ain't arted, we ain't great. Now look at what I forced academia to say. My unapologetic attitude couldn't be erased. Contributed to the way that musicology was shaped. It's felt in the streets and in the Ivy Leagues. You can't deny the facts, it makes you feel the way. The music touches soul, it's no time to waste. So get up and move inside this new day. Why the songs of the time in your heart, on your mind? Who is?
KBLA Talk 1580. Talking with Dr. Guthrie P. Ramsey Jr. That song, Who Hears Here? That is also the title of your book on Black music, past and present. How many books have a song that go with it? I'm not tracking that, Dr. Ramsey.
Hey, listen, I'm hoping this is the first.
Yeah.
It's kind of audacious, but, you know, this is what we do.
That's funky. You know, interesting, though, because one of the points that you talk about in one of your essays, and probably more than one, is this idea of how we categorize music, and it creates almost little prisons for artists that they have to stay in. their category, stay in their lane, and how we're starting to see more and more jailbreaks, from an artistic perspective, partly because of how the business of music is now structured.
I love that, an artistic jailbreak. Can I borrow that?
Of course.
I love that. Yeah, indeed. This, for instance, this the song you just heard will drop soon with a music video, and it's a house track. And I was inspired to do that because of the, Beyonce and Drake both, did some house music in their latest releases, and I noticed how everybody was so excited about it. And I was thinking, well, I was around for the first go-round of house. So I was like, I could do a little bit of that, and and that's, you just try to stay current and listen to what the young people are doing, even if it's what the old people were doing.
You're right.
A little while ago. And so I've always been fascinated with this idea of genre and how it creates social contracts with audiences, and how we can somehow police what the genres mean and who can participate in them because of those strong ideas about what expectations we bring to the table when we hear a piece of music.
When you say social contracts in relationship to music and music categories, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you go to let's say I used the word opera earlier. If you go to an opera and a singer hits one of those inevitable high notes that they have been trained to hit, for the last 30 years of their lives, and you stand up in the middle, if you're in the audience, and you stand up in the middle of the audience and say, "Hallelujah, thank you, Jesus." Let's praise the Lord. You just kind of broke a social contract, okay?
Right.
That of what are the legitimate, quote-unquote, legitimate responses to organized sound. Well, that might be very appropriate to do that in one context. It could be the same high note. It could be it's the same word. But this is what we mean by these contracts. They are drug around, and they create, as you rightly pointed out, these kind of boxes around things. And so I like teasing those things out, not only to explain them, but in my own music, I like to break out of jail, if I could just extend that metaphor, and mix and match what people don't think should go together, and create the conversation, hopefully.
Yeah, and you talk a little bit about how the music business models and also the changing technology has allowed more freedom and more cross-pollination of different genres.
It's really fascinating to watch. Just even if I use my own teaching career as a barometer, when I first started, you'd have to literally drag in LPs and cassettes into the classroom in order to teach something, right? Now, by the end of my teaching career, I had at my fingertips whatever song I wanted to access in the moment, so I could switch gears in a lecture midstream and say, "Oh, let's listen to this." And 9 times out of 10, students would have access to the same variety of music. So consequently, what happens when you get out of jail, you're not just listening in these one-to-one relationships of, is particularly in terms of expectations. You might have a cadre of very unlikely comrades who are very diverse, listening to the same Middle Eastern rap artist, that only they know about and have instantaneous access to. So I think that we're in I would call it a post-genre moment, where because of the ease of access, you can combine and collapse and start a whole new conversation.
Mm. Let's talk about the title, Who Hears Here? What are you saying there? And what, this is a compilation of your work. This is you curating your essays over the years. Who is this meant for? And talk to me about the title as well.
Okay, that title, Who Hears Here, is the title of an article I wrote very early in my career. And I don't know, it was somewhat controversial at the time because I was arguing that in the field that I experienced as a very white endeavor would need to come to terms with how it dealt with the potential black scholar who wanted to write about black music, because what I saw was that a kind of new toolbox of methodologies were being used on this music, but there were very few black people participating in this new canon of methods. And so it was just an argument for a diversification of music history and musicology as it was practiced at the time. And, it made a little name for me as being, courageous enough to say these things when there was, I didn't have tenure then. It was kind of a risk to be making these kinds of arguments, but I frankly, based on the kind of lessons of bravery and courage that I learned from my predecessors, like your father, Amiri Baraka, who was a literary, hero of mine, that you have to take the risk and say what you believe was the truth. And so that's where the title comes from.
Mm. And who are you writing this for? I mean, who are you, I should say, compiling this for?
Well, it's not only is it a testament for the scholars, of all ilks who are following me in musicology, but because I've always been interested in writing in an accessible way, I think that people who care about black music would want to know how it's being talked about or has been talked about in the academy and university settings. And then when I get into the parts of the book where I'm actually literally taking on musicians like Robert Glasper, Nas, Alice Coltrane, and all of that people would be interested in my insights.
Yeah. We'll talk about some of those insights, some of those inspirations, and also how to keep track of Dr. Guthrie P. Ramsey Jr. when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Tweets with racial slurs have soared since Elon Musk took over Twitter. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News. Only a week after the Tesla CEO bought Twitter, reports of the racial epithet used to attack black people was reportedly used 26,000 times, tripling its average this year. And a slur used to target trans people increased by 53%. Instances of offensive terms for homosexual men soared 39% over the yearly average. Examples of offensive terms used to target both Jews and Hispanic people also increase. This all according to research done by the Center for Countering Digital Hate. KBLA listeners, what do you think about Elon Musk, the man who describes himself as a free speech absolutist, taking over Twitter? Let us know by tweeting us at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
At Cedars-Sinai, we're honored to be named the #1 hospital in California and the #2 hospital in the nation in U.S. News & World Report's Best Hospitals Honor Roll. We're also proud to be named #1 in 6 specialties in Los Angeles. Thank you to our physicians, nurses, academic leaders, and thousands of other team members who bring their best to Cedars-Sinai every day. Learn more about our top-ranked care at cedars-sinai.org.
Than the sword.
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. What up, baby? This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Hey!
KBLA Talk 1580. Who hears here is the book. Guthrie P. Ramsey Jr., the professor, musician, pianist, composer, and music historian, is our guest. And Dr. Ramsey, we have someone in our chat. We're on YouTube at the moment. Someone in the chat had a question for you. He goes by the handle Forensic Accountant. Wants to know why we, as black people, according to him, have abandoned the blues.
I often hear those arguments, and at face value, I think I know what they're talking about, and that those a style like the blues is not dominating the revenue streams. Okay, I understand that, but if you just take one listen to any of those Detroit-based gospel singers who are singing more blue notes than you would ever want in an evening, you can't say that the blues have disappeared or that we have turned our back on it. You would just have to think about it as being transformed and absorbed into other generic codes and genre configurations. So I could go to mostly any of a new style pop song and by, let's say, any new rhythm and blues styles, and you would hear the remnants of the blues where they're taking previous generations' innovations and absorbing them into the rhetoric of new genres. So the blues are definitely still present.
Yeah, sometimes that, I do hear that too. People longing for the roots music, but not remembering that the roots are in what we're listening to now. Talk to me about the inspirations, Dr. Ramsey. You talked about getting into music at age 11. You've gone across many, many different genres in your own life. You shouted out some folks before the break that you've written about. Talk to me about the inspirations, those wayposts for you as a musician and as a music historian that have been most consequential.
I often tell people that the most influential musicians in my life have not necessarily been the ones that I have written about, but they have been the ones that I have encountered throughout my life, who I was sharing oxygen with, who I was in conversations with, who I was lucky enough to study with. So I can go through the first piano teacher who showed me what that machine was all about by putting a slice of apple pie and a slice of cheese on top of that piano. And if I just sat and listened to what she had to say, I could have at it. So she was so totally influential to just different musicians who saw that I was serious and maybe paid for my piano lessons because I couldn't afford it. Maybe before my family could afford a piano, they allowed me to practice in their living rooms. You know, that old community stuff. I was raised by a community of musicians, and those have always been in my heart and in reality the most influential people, the most influential musicians.
When we come forward, you know, we'll have just a few minutes before the best of Tavis Smiley. And I do want to hand off the mic to you and let you share whatever inspiration or thought you want us to ponder, but also want to hear your reflection on what you think are the single most powerful impacts that you've been able to make in your work in terms of the way we talk about Black music. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
We don't try to be all things to all people. We just remain true to who we are. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, reminding you when we fight, we win. Asian Americans Advancing Justice is the nation's largest legal and civil rights organization for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. Founded in 1983 as the Asian Pacific American Legal Center, Advancing Justice LA serves more than 15,000 individuals and organizations every year. Their mission is to advocate for civil rights, provide legal services and education, and build coalitions to positively influence and impact Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, and to create a more equitable and harmonious society. To volunteer, make a donation, or seek assistance, visit advancingjustice-la.org. That's advancingjustice-la.org. Or call 888-349-9695. 888-349-9695. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Sanctuary of Hope invites you to come out, support Homeless Youth Awareness Month at a candlelight, interfaith prayer, and youth voice reflections, Tuesday, November 29th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. For more info, visit thesoh.org. Did you know a housing crisis puts young people at huge risk of more violence and trauma? And right now, young people and their children need support more than ever. Prevention services such as financial assistance, education, employment support, and mental health well-being are main drivers of impact. Contact thesoh.org for more information. Did you know an estimated 4.2 million youth and young adults experience homelessness, of which 700,000 are unaccompanied minors? The pathway to functional zero is prevention. More info at thesoh.org. Again, thesoh.org.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stop the violence. Increase the Peace Foundation is a nonprofit community-based organization dedicated to fostering peace while mitigating violence in our society. Established in 1993, Stop the Violence, Increase the Peace has provided a wide variety of assistance to thousands of youth, families, and victims of violence over the past 3 decades, including intervention services, conflict and dispute resolution training, grief counseling, and victims advocacy. In addition, the foundation offers an array of classes focused on anger management, domestic violence, parenting, substance abuse, and more. To make a donation or to access services, call 323-445-8620. That's 323-445-8620, or visit www.increasethepeacefoundation.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
We're talking with Dr. Guthrie Ramsey, music historian and musician, pianist, composer. What do you think your greatest impact has been so far as how, in terms of music history, how we talk about music?
I would have to say that it was the thing I feared most, and that is teaching has been my greatest impact. You know, I was a aspiring musician in my teens, and of course I wanted to be just like Herbie Hancock, to get picked up at age 21 or 22 by a jazz great, and that would usher me into a long career as a formidable jazz pianist, written into history and all that. And then I went into the teaching instead of full-time, performing. And the impact of having, legions of students come up to me often years after I had taught them and say that it really, something I said or did changed their lives, and particularly changed their lives in a musical way. It's, who could have predicted that the thing I was doing just to support my life as I was, trying to stay musical would be my greatest impact.
Got about a minute and a half here. I know we can follow you on Twitter while it's up. How else can we keep track of you, and what thought would you like to leave us with?
Guthrie Ramsey on Facebook, and Ramsey Music on Instagram. And the last thought I would leave is just I have so much gratitude for this beautiful gift of music, and I hope that it will forever be what it has historically been for the African American community, and that is a respite, a hiding place, and the source of protection and happiness and joy.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well, congratulations on the book, Who Hears Here, on Black Music Pasts and Present, holding it up on YouTube. Hope everyone will go and support your music and your writings and pick it up. Thank you for joining us on this Friday.
You're quite welcome. I loved it.
Dr. Guthrie P. Ramsey, we got a lot going on this weekend. I've Known Rivers is at the Barbara Morrison Center in Leimert Park. Of course, there are festivals and great things going on all around wherever you happen to be. And so I hope you have a fabulous weekend. History is now, and we're making it together. I'm Dominique DiPrima. Tavis Smiley, the best of Tavis Smiley, is up next. Until next time, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore.